Nina. Welcome to the Surthriving podcast. I'm so glad you're here.
Lisa, thanks for having me so much. And fun fact, my sister's name is Lisa.
Yeah, we just learned about that off mic that I have an older sister named Nina, who, a shameless plug, was the first episode on my podcast. And you have a sister named Lisa. Something must have been in the water those years ago.
I just think the odds of that are very low because Lisa is a more common name and Nina is such a uncommon name. And so for the same parent to pick both those names is unusual.
Well, I'm really excited for our conversation today. I do start every episode with one question. You can answer it in any way that you feel comfortable. And that is, are you surviving or thriving?
I am very much thriving. I feel so good about it. I'm 47, which will bring an interesting perspective to our conversation today. And I really feel like I'm thriving. I have 4 kids. The oldest is 19, the youngest is 12. So I'm in a little bit of a different stage of more time to think about myself, although I am always thinking about them too. I mean, teenagers have different needs than little guys, but it's different. And I'm more advanced in my writing career and even in podcasting, which was brand new to me 2.5 years ago. I've learned a lot. As you're seeing, each week you learn more and get more comfortable. So now 2.5 years later, more comfortable. I'm a teacher. I've been doing that for a long time. Like everything I've been doing longer. And so I feel comfortable and I feel less nervous to try new things because I know that it will get better. I have the experience to know that.
Yeah, that's such helpful wisdom. And I know that our listeners, my demographic is like late 20s and 30s and then in the 60s, with shout out to my parents. Thanks for listening to every episode.
My mom too and her friends. I have the same thing. They're more like in their 70s.
Yeah, but I'm excited for your wisdom being in your 40s, just coming out of your 30s and like what you can share with myself and everyone. Just to like bring listeners up to speed. I know you said that you're like a mom, a teacher, a podcaster, but can you just share a little bit about how you got into the friendship space, where that passion lies, and kind of how you got everything started in the work that you're doing?
Yeah, and actually it's a good lesson for those younger than me that one door often leads to another, leads to another, leads to another, and you don't always have to know the thing that you want to get serious about right away. So it was a writer. I am a writer. I still write. And the friendship beat came from being a freelance writer and a blogger and having a lot of different topics. I wrote a lot about parenting, which kind of makes sense because I was in the thick of it. I had a column about parenting in a magazine that's no longer around called Brainchild Magazine. And I did that for a while. But as my kids were getting older, I did not want to refer to them at all. Refer is not the right word because I didn't really write about my kids. But when you have 4 kids, anytime you're writing about anything having to do with parenting, you are drawing from some of your own experiences. And as the kids just got a little older, when the oldest was around 11 or 12, I realized, okay, that's just not going to fly. I could see what was going to happen. And it's interesting. We sort of saw in the internet world that some people made that choice and some people didn't. And I think those who didn't found themselves having to make it eventually because your kids get older and it's kind of uncomfortable to have your mom writing about parenting.
Yeah.
But people do it still. I mean, it's not like never done. Well, anyway, one of the things I wrote about was friendship, and some editor friends of mine were starting a website called the Her Stories Project. It's still around. And they wanted to focus on friendship for a while. They did some anthologies about friendship, which I had contributed to as a writer. And they were like, we need a friendship advice columnist. Do you want to do it? And I loved the idea, but I was also terrified of the idea because I'm not a therapist. I'm not a social worker.
Yeah.
And they were like, we'll just lean into that. We'll make that part of the gig, that you're just a regular person with a unusual passion for friendship, which is true. I, long time ago, had the desire to write a novel, and I'd written a few. I almost got an agent with one, and it was actually about 3 women, adult women, who were all dumped by the same best friend. It was called The Friends of Ivy Stein. Well, I changed it many times, but it was called The Friends of Ivy Stein at one point. It's a cute idea, but it never really quite worked as a book. I ended up publishing some of the chapters as short stories. My point is that was like way back in I've been writing about friendship for a long, long time. So I am unusually into this topic. I said, let's go for it. We got questions. They did me a huge favor by having the technology skills to make a form to ask me questions that did not require an email address. And I think that's why we always got good questions. When you can actually have a form that doesn't require one, you can really ask good, juicy questions. And so I did that twice a month for about 4 years. And then they were shifting their focus a little bit away from friendship. And they said, you can keep all your content, which was wonderful. And that's not, by the way, for fellow writers, something that always happens. It's kind of unusual, actually. So I moved that all to my own site and did that for another maybe 3 years or so. So I've been writing about friendship for about 7 years when I realized that podcasting is where it's at, which is not a coincidence that it was also around 2020 when we're all stuck at home. A lot of podcasts were born in 2020 because we had the time. I had 7 years of friendship material at that time. So I decided to start the podcast, but it took me a while to learn and to decide on the name and all those things. So I started the podcast in summer of 20. And that is a very long answer, but it is how one door led to the next, led to the next.
Yeah, it is so interesting how if you just like keep pushing forward, it's such a true testament that if you just keep pushing forward, you obviously found something that you liked, you were interested in, that you were good at, passionate about, and relatable that people could just relate to. Well, for this episode, like specifically, Nina and I will be focusing on like how to keep friendships strong in your 30s, navigating friendship in your 30s. And I've kind of touched on this like a variety of episodes that I have already released, but I'm really excited just to like talk about this because I saw myself actually in a lot of that response that you were saying. I love my friends. I love them. I feel like I have the best ones on the planet. Any close friend listening, I love you. Thanks for being such a great supportive friend. I just like love my friends.
No, it's so
true,
beautiful.
like,
I feel the same way.
yeah.
I'm like that too. Yes.
I just like have been so blessed to have different friends from different phases of life who have seen me in different areas, who have seen me survive and thrive. And I just feel so lucky. And it's such a warm feeling when I'm like around them. With that said, and your expertise, like, why is it so hard to keep friends strong and keep them consistent and genuine in our 30s?
I'm going to make a guess and you'll have to tell me if I'm right. I think that you are thriving in your friendships, I'm guessing because you make them a priority. Like when it's funny, you said, I've been very blessed, but I actually think it's so much more than that. There is some beginning, like the origins of a lot of friendships sometimes is luck, is that same idea of like being, blessed with proximity. Proximity is a huge factor in friendship. I mean, it really is. If you think about how people get really close in college or camp, overnight camp for some people who go to overnight camp, or even just growing up a couple blocks away, you might not have had a ton in common with that person outside of the fact that you were nearby, but that counts for so much. And then you get to know each other. You get over whatever surface differences you may have because the convenience of being able to hang out is just major. Convenience is major. And we'll come back to that later because that's something that will help people make friends. But making time is not luck. That is real work. That is real work to make sure that you are circling back to people that you haven't heard from in a while, that you are making sure to show up for your friends. I mean, not everybody is good at that. It doesn't mean you can't be. It's just, I think you have to be conscious of, are you in a stage of life where you're giving so much to other people, whether it's work or family, that you're putting your friends on the back burner, and that's very dangerous. And that's dangerous in your 30s specifically, I think, because 30s is a time when there's just a lot going on, whether you're married or single. There's different things that are pulling at you. It's easy to put friendship, like I said, on the back burner. I wish there was like another expression for that, but just it's not a priority. It's not and time marches ahead. I think there's another danger nowadays for friendship. And again, I would put 30s in the major danger zone for that. And I think it's the over reliance on social media and sort of the false sense of that you are spending time with people when you're actually not. But it really feels like it because I love social media too, even at 47 and especially as like an internet person like I am. Time goes by so fast and you really can feel like you have done something social when you really have not in the way that is the most deep and fulfilling. So you may be busy and it may even have a whiff of social time, but it isn't the same as actually getting on the phone and having a conversation, or even better, being with somebody in person.
I appreciate you bringing up the whole social media thing because I will be the first one to admit that I'm like the girl in the Instagram group thread that's like sending memes and sending TikToks and like anything that's funny under this. I guess maybe that's a way for me to like feel relatable or laugh or have a common giggle with friends and stuff. But there is a lot to be said about that. That's very different and less attached than being just in person and like sitting with someone and being like, this is what's going on in my life. Like, this is what I'm stressed about, because anything over text or Snapchat, a meme or whatever, can just be taken in the wrong direction or received in the wrong direction, or maybe someone isn't feeling as heard if they're having a texting conversation about something that's stressful in their life. I think friendship has changed since COVID a lot. And as you noted in the beginning, we're more connected, but less connected than ever since social media and COVID and everything. And priority thing is a huge part. And I am the only single friend in a lot of like my circles. And so a lot of people's priorities are planning weddings and the bridal showers. And those are all great. Like, I love a wedding dance floor. I will show up to everything and anything for you under the sun, but not everyone can relate to that. Not everyone is also doing that same thing. And so I think when you're in your 30s and all of that is a priority and on the front burner, for the stove analogy, it's hard to meet in the middle and say like, well, where can we meet in the middle gel and bond and, can join over a mutual interest of something that maybe we once had. So like that college friend or the high school friend. I have one friend from high school. We've been friends since literally we've just made it work, and we live like totally black and white lives. And she is someone that I've just been friends with for like literally forever, and that will never change. I was in her wedding and we've just showed up for each other. And so maybe that's just like the people that we are, but it also is prioritization. I have seen that both of us have prioritized each other's lives and what's going on in each other's lives. With that prioritization, like what advice would you give to someone on like how to actually keep friendships strong in their 30s?
Well, keeping on the social media for a second, I wanted to, it relates to this question, but I just want to stress, I'm not saying to stop doing it or to not enjoy it. Because I agree. I'm just like you. I'm the one sending the memes and haha, isn't that funny? And I'm hoping usually for more that I get. Like I want somebody to write why that was funny. And usually if I'm lucky, I get like a heart. It's like, you know what I mean? Like we just want so much more. But I think social media has to just be an ad and not a replacement. So as long as you have it, the right attitude that it's an additive, because it is a fun way to keep in touch. That's fast, but it will lose its sense of depth quickly if you don't make sure to see the person. And so showing up in your 30s, I think means, I would say, like, let's think about, well, this doesn't even matter if it's long distance or in person. Something that's really a challenge in your 30s, if there's a lot of weddings going on, is trying to plan some sort of trip with your friends can be really hard because you're already spending a lot of money on weddings and dresses and flights and hotels. And maybe you need to treat those like a group trip, like really see it as like, this is our friend time together. Like maybe you can add a day on or something. Like, I think that's a great idea for people who are in the wedding cycle, whether it doesn't matter if you're single or not. That's if you are someone who's attending weddings a lot and you have friends going to those weddings. I love the idea of attaching a day after or before, not with the bride, but with the fellow people going that you're friends with. It's a twofer because you're already flying there. So it may require an extra hotel day. But I think that would be really worth it. That is not something I did in my 30s and I wish I had.
Yeah.
But now one thing I had going on in my 30s was babies. I mean, so I had my first kid at 27. And so it's interesting. I love talking to you and hearing about you being the single person in your group of friends. I hear from a lot of people who are in your position, but with a totally different attitude about it. I almost really need to have you on my podcast so that you can advise, right? So that you could advise my listeners on just like the wonderful point of view you have that you're here because like you want to be there for this is something important to your friend. And so therefore you want to show up for it. I think something people can do for you in return doesn't sound like it's too big of a problem, but for other people who have friends who are paired up and starting to have kids, if you're not, it would be nice if those friends took your life just as seriously. I'm going to use your podcast as an example because I know I feel this way. I don't expect my friends to all listen to my podcast, but I would like that they ask about it. And some do, some don't.
Yeah.
I think it would be nice if they just said, how's that going? Is it a lot of work? Do you like it? Are you still having fun with it? How long do you think you'll do it for? Just to have a conversation about it. It could be 2 minutes, but it feels icky, for lack of a better word, when someone ignores a huge undertaking you're involved with, just like it would feel very strange if you never said in a conversation, hey, how's Mark doing? Or, I'm just throwing a name out there. Or how's your job?
Did you pick a florist?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's the same thing.
Yes, and you don't need to see every single picture of every flower they're considering. And just like you would not be like, hey, I decided to switch to use Riverside and now I'm using this to edit. Like that's too in the weeds. Like you don't have to get in the weeds to show interest. So a lot of showing up doesn't even have to be physically going anywhere. It is showing interest.
I think it's important to find, and you kind of touch on this, but like find what your friends care about and ask about it. It doesn't have to, just because you don't align in where you are in life, you can find something that is passionate or of interest to them. I think that in your 30s, a lot of friendship is developed and consistent and stays strong because of convenience. And convenience often is because it is mixed with similar stages. So like two friends are planning a wedding at the same time. What florist are you getting? What photographer are you getting? And it's like, not everyone is doing that. Just have to show up for your friends. And like you said, Dina, it doesn't have to be in the weeds. Like I've had a couple of friends who are like, I'm sorry, I'm a week behind on the podcast. And I'm like, it's okay. Just listen when you can listen. You don't have to be in the weeds with them, but you also have to show up at a level that shows that you care.
But staying in the why friendships are hard in our 30s 30s, we've touched on something and I want to continue, which is this convenience thing and being in the same stage as someone. So the two people planning a wedding, or what you see a lot in your 30s is people who have kids the same age. Either you have an old friend who is having a kid the same age, so you stay connected, or you make new friends based on that. There's convenience there, which is wonderful, but there's also a danger there. I mean, danger like lowercase d. I don't mean major danger, but it is easy to overly rely on people who are on the same stage. And then people wake up in their 40s. I'm here from the future to tell you in your 40s that it is really easy to wake up and say, oh, do I have anything else in common with these people? I hear from people a lot who, I'll give you an example, like with having teenagers, you get really involved in their sports. So certain kinds of parents do get really involved in your kids' sports, and then they graduate high school or something, and you kind of look up and you go, oh my God, I've been spending all this time with people on the bleachers, fellow parents, and not developing my own hobbies, my own interests, or at least developing friendships with people who share those interests. And now they've graduated, and who are my friends? That has not happened to me, but it does happen to people who write to me. And I think a way to avoid that in your 30s is to stay involved in the things that interest you. Doesn't mean you're not going to show up to your kids' games, but I mean, stay involved in things that interest you, and the people who show up for those things, it doesn't matter if they're married, single, have kids, don't have kids, because your shared passion is the connection and will continue to be. My warning is it's less about friendship being hard in your 30s. It's more like it can be too easy almost to just make it about those commonalities. But if that commonality disappears, like the stage part disappears, what else do you have? So just to consider that. And it's also okay to have some friends that are just there because you're in the same stage, because that counts for something too. So what I'm saying is to have some variety, not to have all, if you're a young mom, I would not make all your friendships about your young kids.
No, that's really good advice. And it made me think that, are the other parents on the bleachers at the soccer game your friends, or are they there because they're also viewing the same soccer game as you? So it's like, and some of them can be both, right? Like some of them can be people that you go out to dinner with and do other things with. Something that I've learned too that I would love to hear your view on is that my mom always taught me growing up that like your friends don't have to, every friend doesn't have to always fill every bucket. So you're not going to like always tell one friend everything.
So your mom gave you such good advice, because that is absolutely true. And I think a lot of the letters I get, I really think come to this, although nobody uses those words. But I think what's under the surface is that they are expecting too much from a certain friend. So again, they're not saying that, but I bet if their friend were to write to me, they would say that. They would be like, this friend's expecting too much from me, because you can't expect all the things from all the people. And I think the people who are happiest with their friendships are the ones who have this attitude that your mom has pushed, which is that you can have, and not just can, should have different friends for different reasons. It's the ideal, because we're all different. And if you have different kinds of friends, they bring out different parts of you. So, I mean, oh my gosh, I mean, I have friends I talk about books with, I wouldn't bring up with other ones. I like have definitely sometimes some friends that started out more as colleague types, like we were both writers, and it was just about that for a while, but then it developed into more, and we got to know about each other's families. But then there's friends who we only were connected because of the family connection, like I said, being like young moms at the time, and then it developed into something more, or didn't. It's okay that it's still about parenting. You need friends for that, to celebrate family stuff and be excited about, your kids' first job and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I think the way to develop that and to have different kinds of friends is, first of all, that mindset that it's okay, and not just okay, but a really good and healthy thing, but also to constantly be doing and trying new things so that you can meet different kinds of people. Because another thing I know we want to get to, and I think it's important, is avoiding loneliness in adulthood and in your 30s. Back to the social media thing, you have to get out of the house. I know people don't want to hear that. And I don't care if you're introverted or extroverted. I know I'm going to hear from all the people and I see all the memes. I'm an introvert, so I feel I can speak to this. And I've listened to your podcast. I know you're an extrovert. I'm very much an introvert. I'm a social introvert. I love people. I have tons of friends. I love to be with my friends. I'm just, at the end of the night, just done. I'm done for the night. It often comes up as an issue with my husband, who's a huge extrovert. And so he's still ready to talk more. And I'll watch TV with him or something, but I don't want to talk. Like, I cannot talk at the end of the night. And he could talk to 10 more people. It just never ends. But my point is, even the introvert has to get out of the house. I really believe that strongly. And try things, do things. And if you find yourself on social media a lot, maybe pay attention to what you're attracted to on social media. Are you constantly looking at flower shops? Are you constantly looking at makeup and you're really into makeup? Okay. Is there an event happening at the Nordstrom by your house where they're having like some cool makeup artists come? Like, just get out and do stuff. Just get out and do stuff. You're not going to make a best friend everywhere you go, but it's good to be part of the community, to get out and sort of follow some of these little threads that you find yourself interested in.
Yeah, absolutely. And trying new things and being consistent somewhere, even if that's somewhere for a month and you're like, actually, like, I don't really like this, then trying something else. I think a big thing for me too is I've had to shift my expectations a lot with friendships. And that's everything from like how fast someone texts me back to like how often I hang out with them. So like I know certain friends, I will text them and I will like literally not get a response for a day. I know that. I've shifted my expectations. It's not personal. They're living their life, or they hate texting, or they lose their phone in their apartment or something. Like and then I have friends who I know I'll get an answer in 20 minutes. And so
Lisa,
just ship.
I'm sorry, I have to tell you, you
What?
have the healthiest attitude. Like
Thank you.
have all the, I mean, I'm serious. First of all, you're bringing up so many of the things I hear about.
Yeah.
The texting is huge, and the expectation part is so big. It cannot be overstated. I mean, people stop speaking. People drop friendships. People end friendships because they are like, I'm always the one who texts more. I'm always the one who calls more. And what I wish more people would do is have this attitude of just like, I'm just more organized about my time, or it's more important to me to be in close touch. So therefore, I'm going to be the one who has to reach out more and not take it so personally. Because it may be that person is really just not on their phone as much as you are.
Yeah. And I will say there is another side to it. I am like the initiator friend, and I struggle with that sometimes, because who doesn't want to be pursued in a friendship, right? Anyone loves getting a text message. Hey, there's this new restaurant opening in Soho. Do you want to go try the drinks there? That's awesome. That would make anyone feel good. Your friend wants to hang out with you, of course. And so that's something that I'm always evolving and like working on. But I think just to any listener who is 30, about to be 31 like me, or just in your 30s who's struggling, just like finding what that friendship is and like accepting it and owning it and like absorbing those expectations and shifting them. So this is going to sound like so corny, but I have a friend. I love soup. Sounds insane, but I love soup. And I have another friend from grad school who also loves soup. And so when we like eat soup, we'll just send each other a picture of the bowl of soup that we're eating.
I love that.
That's like funny and quirky. And like, I did it yesterday. And then it just evolved into, oh my God, that looks so good. How are you doing?
The reaching out. Well, first of all, I love the soup concept because, yeah, exactly. The conversation can start on this cute, it's like a ritual. It's a cute ritual you have with this friend. But then, yeah, it evolves into more, which is wonderful. The who reaches out first is such a major topic. It is the number one SEO thing that brings people to my website, without a question. There's several versions of the same thing. Like, I don't know if you get this from Google. I get an email from Google like once a month that shows like the top search things that led people to my website. Because I have all this friendship content on my website from all the way back to about 20 over time, Google recognizes your site. Okay. So the top couple are my friend never initiates first, or it'll be like the other version. I always initiate first, or I always send the first text. There's everything on the top. I'd say the top 5 things are some version of that, like different versions. So it really is something that people are plagued by. And I get it, because I'm also an initiator in most cases, not all cases. So I get what you're saying. And again, people will end friendships over this, and a mind shift would likely be the solution. It seems like you're generally doing that. What I tell people is to think about, there's a category of reaching out and there's the category of reaching back. And by reaching back, I mean responding in a decent amount of time. If it's someone, like you said, who regularly doesn't respond for a day, fine. If it's somebody who normally was fast, but now consistently is waiting a couple days, okay, that's notable. It is notable. Not going to tell you it isn't. But okay, so let's say it's consistently the person writes back right away. Oh, I'd love to go to that movie. That sounds so fun. Let's do it. And they can do that time. Great. If they can't do that time, but they then give you a bunch of dates to consider, that to me is equal to reaching out. Now, not everybody likes to hear that, because they're like, no, I want my friend to, like, I did it last time. They should do it next time. Some people just, first of all, they're not people who like to go out as much anyway, period. Like, a lot of people are homebodies more than ever. I don't know, again, if it's the algorithm showing me this stuff, but I mean, every other thing I see on the internet is about like, haha, I'm so happy my friend's canceled.
Yeah.
There's so much of that. And it's like funny for a second, but it's actually on a deeper level, I think, a little sad that we have developed this meme culture of like how much everyone hates to like spend time with their friends. Like, is that really what we're joking about, everyone? We're just joking that like, oh, I'd rather stay home on my couch and watch TV and scroll the internet. That's not good. That is not healthy. We all need download time like that, but not constantly. I mean, that is a recipe for eventual loneliness. So anyway, There are a lot of people stuck in that spiral though, for real, where they really are happy when their friends cancel. They really want to stay home. And I know there's a lot of mental health issues and all that going on, but part of the solution to that is to spend time with people that either you already love or that you can as a friend, or that you could over time deepen a connection and really feel seen. And you can't really feel seen by a person when you are by yourself on the couch. So anyway, this is a long way to say that many people are just not good at reaching out because they actually don't want to go out. It's not that they don't want to go out with you. They just don't want to go anywhere with anyone. But when you reach out to them, they're like, yeah, you know what? I'm just using you as an example because we're talking, so it's easiest. When you reach out, they go, I really do want to hang out with Lisa. I always have fun when I do. So even though I like don't feel like leaving the house, like she's right, we should put something on the calendar. And as long as they give you dates in return, like that work, I can like, again, consider that equal. They're not reaching out, but they're reaching back. That's how I think of it. Instead of the out, they're reaching back, and they're reaching back quickly and consistently. If they're always like not answering, or they can't do the thing you suggested but don't suggest a thing in return, I would absolutely advocate putting your energy elsewhere.
What like advice would you like give to someone who's like, just feeling lonely? Like they're feeling lonely in their friendships. Maybe they don't feel like related and they're really trying to reach for that like genuine connection.
It's a great question. And something I say a lot, whether it's to my own teenagers, to other parents of teens and even younger people, and then all the way up to I've spoken to people my mom's age, and she's in her late 70s, and I give the same advice. And that is, people who make plans have plans. It's very simple, and anybody waiting around is not going to have plans. And so even if you're not a good initiator, even if you're not someone who has the general personality to be the person to reach out first, I really encourage people to push yourself a little bit. And I feel like nobody hears that enough in this world. We're very much about just accepting everyone where they're at and just like accepting your own traits as how they are. And yes, you want to love yourself, but you could also, like you said, work on yourself.
Yeah.
There is room in this world to tell people that you can do things to help yourself. And so it isn't actually helpful to just accept, oh, I'm somebody who doesn't really like to reach out first. I like people to reach out to me. And like you said, yeah, we all like to be pursued, but sometimes it just, however it shakes out, doesn't work out that way. And if you make plans, you have plans. If you sign up for a class every Monday night, you have something to do every Monday night. If you have someone from that class you eventually want to have coffee with, you are only going to have that coffee if you reach out. And just instead of seeing it as a burden, see it as an opportunity and a power. It really is powerful once you accept like, hey, wait, I'm actually in charge of my schedule. And signing up for classes and stuff is a great thing. I teach adult writing creative classes. I lead, they're not how to, it's more like people who already generally love to write, but they haven't really made time in their adult life to do that. And so they find themselves in their variety, like 30s, 40s, 50s, and even older, are saying, oh my God, I always love to write and I haven't really taken it seriously. So it's a really fun, loose thing. I have people who have been in it for 8 years. They didn't sign up with the intention to stay for 8 years. We ended up opening a second day for it because nobody left that first session. People made friends there over years. They didn't make friends right away. Nobody came after 2 times and became best friends. But that's another thing for loneliness that I suggest to people is you're not looking for a best friend. Do not go out there. Do not sign up for a class. Do not ask your workout buddy for a coffee looking for a best friend. You're just looking for friends. Close friends come from friends. Like people forget that. It sounds very obvious, but we really forget that you don't become close to someone without first being acquaintances. You don't become acquaintances without first getting out of the house. So it's like get out, do something, acquaintances, friends, close friends. I mean, these are layers that take a lot of time, but it won't happen unless you get started on that first.
Yeah, I agree. Putting yourself out there might feel scary or uncomfortable, but you know, anything in life feels uncomfortable the first time that you do it, including a podcast.
Totally.
And a huge thing too is it doesn't have to be like this expensive, fancy hangout. Like just go on a walk with your friend. I live like near the water and like just go on a hot girl walk. There's this trend of hot girl walks. Just go on a hot girl walk with your friend. You can just, and then if you want to stop and get like an iced tea, that's fine. It doesn't have to be we sit at a restaurant. It doesn't have to be we go bowling. I think we like overextend or try to overforce what a friendship can be and what quality time can be. And it doesn't have to be this huge, fancy, crazy like birthday, like brunch. But I also think that it's important to like create intentional time. Does that make
I'm
sense?
all for the walk. I mean,
Yeah.
I advocate that a lot. I'm a big walker. I do a lot of walking. When somebody reaches out to me, if they want to have lunch, 9 out of 10 times, I'll say, can we walk instead? Because I sit a lot at my computer, and it's the idea of sitting for lunch or even coffee just like fills me with dread. Not because I don't want to be with the person. I'd love to talk to the person, but I much would rather be on my feet. And also it has a time limit, which sometimes it leaves you wanting more,
Hmm.
but that's a good thing. And it's easier to fit in. I mean, just
And so, with your experience, what are some like important conversations that you feel that people should have in their 30s? If there's a listener who's out there who's like, Nina, I'm just really struggling with my friends. I don't feel seen. They don't reach out to me. How would you advise them to have a genuine, vulnerable like conversation with their friends about their friendship struggle?
that's a great question. I think if we're talking about a couple of friends in your life that really have potential to stay your friends, like you love them for a lot of reasons, then I think it's okay and good, not just okay. It is good to have a conversation with them that says something like, I really wish that we were spending more time together or talking more, and just being honest about it and saying you're not upset at them, you just miss your friend, like using language like, I miss you, I miss spending time with you. If nothing comes from that, again, like I push the person to not always expect for it to be like tit for tat,
Yeah.
like that. But okay, but let's say they don't even reach back. It may be that this friendship is ready to shift. It's hard to accept that, but sometimes in your 30s, some of the friendships you have may have run their. There actually is a study. I don't remember who did it, but anyone could Google it. You just Google study about friendship. Friendships change every 7 years. There's a established study out there that friendships do tend to change every 7 years. And most people, if you think about your life and you think about the people you were calling your very best friends 7 years ago, a lot of times we still have those people in our lives. I have people in my life from childhood as well. Are they the people I speak to every day like I did then? Like, no. The people that I have met, like I bring my tennis friends back into it for a moment. I didn't know them 7 years ago. And I text with a lot of them, like quite a bit. So that's taking the place maybe of people I texted with more 7 years ago when my kids were at a different school and I had like different parents in my daily life. That's just how it goes. And so it may be that you're getting into that kind of 7 year itch period and time to shift.
I wanted to quickly go back to something that you brought up in the beginning, how I was talking about how I love a wedding dance floor and all that stuff. A piece of, I guess, wisdom, and I would be curious on your perspective of this. Even though I'm in a different phase than pretty much all of my friends, when I am celebrating milestones or showing up for them, whatever it may be, I see the friend first. I see the friendship first before that celebration or milestone. And I see that the friend got there or is celebrating that, not that it's there doing something better, faster, stronger than me or whatever it may be. I don't know if that really like makes sense. It makes sense in my head, but that doesn't dissipate the fact that sometimes it is hard and it can feel lonely, and there's a whole other side to something that has helped like my framing is that like when I'm showing up for my friends, a bridal shower, a baby shower, I am celebrating that friend first. Like I am seeing them first before the accomplishment, if that makes sense. And I'm just like seeing them in that light of doing something great and grand and that they're happy. I don't really ever take it as something that I am missing. Does that make sense?
What you're describing is that you don't feel regularly, at least, because all of us feel it a little bit, but you don't feel like a constant sense of envy.
Yeah.
Like you didn't use that word, but that's what you're saying, is that you are able to just celebrate the excitement of your friend, whatever it is, without making it about you. Like a lot of times envy, that is what it is kind of reflecting it back on you. And I'm not saying that you never feel that way, because who doesn't? We're all human. But
Yeah,
even
of
if you
course.
do, more credit to you, you're able to rise above it. You know, you feel it, but you rise above it. That's a beautiful thing.
Nina, thank you so much for coming on the Surthriving podcast. I love this conversation. I really hope listeners just take away that it's okay to evolve and grow and change your friendships, and that there's power in learning how to shift your expectations, and there's power in learning how to let go and learning how to meet your friends where they're at, but also keeping those like genuine connections. Any last words of wisdom or advice that you would like to provide for our listeners on this topic?
One final thing I wanted to say is that I think in your 30s, because you really are still young, and I have people way older than me telling me that I'm still young at 47, so I know it's all relative. But because you're a lot younger than me, I feel I can say to you and listeners that time really goes fast. I know it's such a cliche, but I feel like I had a baby 2 seconds ago and he's 19. 19? And all I did was wish for like more time to myself. And he's on a gap year abroad this year, and then he's going to college next year. And when he left for this gap year, I was like, what? How did that happen? It was a second ago. And also at 47, I've seen friends get sick. We've seen a lot of parents get sick. My dad passed away 2 years ago. I mean, time is marching forward and you're not going to get it back. This is your one life. And so when it comes to friendship, don't let yourself be dissatisfied with your friendships. Like, either work on it and talk to your friends or make new friends. I really want to push that. It's funny, I've never pushed that as much as I have in this episode. Just don't let yourself get stuck in a rut, because all of a sudden you're 33, you're 34, you're 35, and you're like holding on to these people that were so important to you in your 20s or your teens just for the sake of history.
Yeah.
And that is an important thing, but don't let it keep you from making new friends, trying new things, and like getting out of the house and trying new things so that you can continue to, like you said, I love the word evolve, so that you can evolve as a person. And friendship should never come off your list. It should always be a high priority, no matter what stage. Married, single, kids, no kids. Friendship should always be in the very, very top. Every study says so, and that's why I talk about it so much.
Yeah. Well, Nina, thank you so much for your wisdom and advice. I will put all of your social media links and your own podcast so that people can follow along the friendship conversation and reach out to you if they need any advice. Thank you so much again for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Such a pleasure.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Surthriving. I hope you took some helpful information away from it and are feeling inspired. If you know someone who is surviving or thriving and would benefit from hearing this episode, feel free to send it over to them. Remember, sharing is caring. To leave a review or rating of the show, head to Spotify to follow, rate, and let me know what you think. All information about today's episode, guest, and podcast social handles will be in the description, so don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date.